Today I want to give you an update on the beginner house-planted tank a full year after it has been set up. So how are the plants doing? What are some successes and challenges that I've had with this setup? What are some things that I maybe would have done differently? And what are some changes I'm going to make going forward? So let's answer these questions as we dive right in. The Parlor Palm has done the best, I would say, of these plants. Perhaps it has grown too well. It managed to overshadow and choke out a purple waffle plant after a few months. The FITTONIA has done well overall. I did lose one of them a month or so ago. It just randomly died, and I think it wasn't getting enough light. The POTHOS did moderately well, but has done much better since I've added more lighting. The peace lily has just not grown as expected. Although I have successfully grown peace lily this deep in the water before, it's just not working very well in this tank. But I really think the lighting is the biggest issue because it's been insufficient. The planters are holding up well. If you remember from the build video, these are plastic shower caddies that I spray painted black, hanging from the back of the tank using binder clips and zip ties. I think the number one thing I would have done differently is provide better lighting sooner than I did. After moving this tank into my son's room last year, I only kept the one small light that was original to the build, and this room tends to be pretty dark, so I think some of the plants struggled more than they should have. I have noticed that the peace lily and the POTHOS have been growing much better since adding more light. Another change I would probably make is to use fewer parlor palms. This was way too many. It looks great now, and especially in the beginning, but man, they dominated and overshadowed other plants, like the purple waffle plant that I mentioned earlier. Now, I did thin out the group when they were much smaller, but they still just dominated. And of course, parlor palms, they can grow quite large, but I was thinking they would grow much slower in the water. Boy, was I wrong. The Marimo moss has been a success, and I've divided the balls a few different times, and I'm growing the surplus in other tanks. So some challenges I've had with this setup. The nitrates have tended to be higher than I expected, though usually within the safe zone of under 40 parts per million. With this many plants and just a few fish, those nitrates should barely even be showing up on the test. I think insufficient lighting earlier on could have contributed to this. All these plants not photosynthesizing correctly because not getting enough light, and then therefore not feeding on nitrates. Another problem I've been having is with brown algae. It's been a while since I've cleaned the glass on this tank, and I'll be sure to give this tank a good scrub down today. But I'm thinking about adding guppy grass to help balance out those nitrates and hopefully reduce the algae growth. And I usually have trouble growing water column feeding aquatic plants like guppy grass in a riparium because they have such a hard time competing for nutrients and light against these bigger plants, and they normally just kind of slowly die out. But in this case, with this tank having nitrates so high, I think it'd be worth a shot to see if I can balance out those nitrates and hopefully reduce that algae growth. As far as water changes go, I did perform regular water changes in the beginning when this tank was first set up, but I've only done it a few times since everything balanced out. If you follow this channel for any amount of time, you know that my goal for every tank is to reduce or eliminate regular water changes. And I don't just decide this arbitrarily. I don't just say, today I shall stop doing water changes. No, there's a process for determining the need for it. And check out this video and the link in the description below to learn more about my process of reducing water changes. Even if a tank doesn't need regular water changes, it's still a good idea to do a seasonal water change, just in case there's anything undetected building up that could have the potential to be harmful. Plus, there is some debris and mulm building up against the front glass, so this is a good chance to siphon it out. One thing I have learned about Marimo moss is that it can get dirty and needs to be rinsed from time to time. so I'll remove it before I change the water and rinse it out separately. After the water change, I trim off dead leaves from the parlor palm and the peace lily. I grab some guppy grass from another tank to hopefully help balance out the excess nitrates like I mentioned earlier. I rinse the moss balls thoroughly in dechlorinated water and add them back to the tank along with the guppy grass. With every project, there will be things that we love about it, things we wish we would have done differently, and some things that were just flat out mistakes, like me not providing enough light for these plants earlier on. But just like in life, we can learn from our mistakes. We can apply that knowledge the next time that we need it. If we let them, these plant life projects will help us to learn patience with ourselves, to keep learning, and to keep building our story. Well, thank you for watching, and remember to hit that like button if you found this content helpful today. And remember, it's all about the plants.